some sad breaking news now, and that is that the actress Diane Keaton has died at the age of 79.
Every corner of Tinseltown fell silent the moment the news broke. Diane Keaton, Oscar winner, fashion icon, living legend, had quietly passed away on October 11, 2025, at the age of 79. Cameras flashed, voices hushed, and fans around the world wondered not only about her final moments, but about the truths she'd kept hidden for decades. What you're about to hear are the last words Diane Keaton shared before she closed her eyes, the confessions that exposed the tender, tumultuous bond she shared with Al Pacino, revealed here for the very first time. If you think you know everything about their storied romance, prepare to be shocked. Imagine a young Diane, brimming with hope, walking onto a Harlem casting lot in 1971 for a film no one expected to change cinema forever. She was nervous, uncertain of her path, but her heart fluttered when she spotted a lean, intense actor rehearsing a monologue, eyes alive with passion, voice whispering the promise of power and depth. That actor was Al Pacino, then 29, hungry for his defining moment. She stood a few steps away, silently memorizing every gesture, his hands animated, his gaze unwavering, his husky voice tinged with youthful zeal. From their first brief exchange of words, when Pacino glanced over, offered a crooked smile, and said, "Mind if I share this script note with you?" There was an unspoken electricity. She felt it in her chest, a spark that told her their lives would never be the same. Yet she tucked her feelings away, like a precious gem hidden in a velvet pouch. Both were artists first, lovers second, and at the outset, they barely let friendship bloom. The work demanded everything: long hours on set, interviews, press junkets. Romance was a luxury neither could afford. Still, magic found its way into the margins. During off hours they congregated in a small Manhattan bar, trading dreams and whispers over chipped glasses of bourbon. The noise of the city melted away, leaving only their laughter and the soft hum of possibility. Diane, with her shy smile and vintage hats, listened raptly as Al described his vision for Michael Corleone, painting entire scenes with words. She felt honored, privileged even, to witness his genius unfolding. Those nights, though fleeting, stitched together a fragile tapestry of connection. By the time The Godfather premiered, both sensed something deeper, something uncharted by screenplays or director's notes. The public saw their on-screen chemistry, but off-camera they shared private dances in empty studios, post-midnight drives through deserted Brooklyn streets, stolen kisses beneath flickering street lamps. Yet neither commented on love, for both feared vulnerability. Diane guarded her heart behind witty quips, Al wrapped his feelings in brooding intensity. Together they created a push-and-pull dance, exhilarating and exhausting in equal measure. As seasons changed, so did their dynamic. From the bright triumph of Annie Hall in 1977, which cemented Diane's legacy, to Al's meteoric rise with Scarface, each victory elevated them yet widened the silent gulf. Diane dreamed of marriage, a home filled with laughter and light, while Al remained restless, a wandering spirit chasing roles fueled by ambition. He hesitated when she whispered of rings and children. In private moments, she glimpsed his pain, a man who loved too fiercely to ever stay still. And her own heart fractured a little more each time his eyes flashed with doubt. Still, she stayed. She lent him money when his accounts teetered on the brink, disguised as casual loans between friends. She championed his comebacks, pressed his scripts into studio executives' hands, held him through nights of self-doubt. In return, he offered passion intoxicating, combustible, but never the lasting commitment she craved. Their story became one of devotion without promise, tenderness laced with heartbreak. It was a love affair the world envied and pitied in equal parts. Now, in the hush of her final testament, Diane Keaton revealed the truth. No tabloid dared print that moment in 1989, when she pressed him for a proposal beneath a Nova Scotian sunset, was the turning point. His eyes, once so fervent, cooled with an unbearable distance. "I can't be the husband you need," he whispered. She felt her world collapse in the twilight. That refusal, more than any betrayal, seared her soul, and so she walked away, clutching a handwritten letter, his last love note, like a lifeline to a chapter she'd never finish. In the hush of her Los Angeles home, surrounded by soft lamplight and the faint scent of lavender. Diane's voice trembled as she read aloud the words she'd kept locked away for decades. Only hours before her passing, she spoke into a recorder placed on the oak coffee table, the same table where she and Al had once shared wine and whispered dreams. "I want the world to know," she began, "that our love was as real as any marriage vow, even if it never wore a ring." Her tone was gentle, yet edged with a quiet resolve, as though freeing herself from a lifetime of unspoken hope. She confessed how every major milestone, Oscar night magazine cover shoots, red carpets, felt incomplete without his hand to hold. In her final revelation, she described a single photograph from 1976, a candid Polaroid of them laughing under a Rialto bridge arch, her head tilted toward his shoulder. "That moment captured everything," she said, voice thick. "We were infinite then, and I believed we could be infinite forever." The contrast of that sunlit day against the cool reality of their breakup years later made her ache. She paused, eyes moist, as the recording picked up the soft creak of her leather armchair. Diane spoke of the aftermath, how opening her closet each morning reminded her of the tailored suits he'd once admired, and how every glimpse of his films triggered a bittersweet longing. "I never stopped cheering for Al," she admitted, "but I stopped hoping for us." She described an afternoon in the early 90s, when she watched The Godfather Part 3 alone, tears rolling as she realized their story would remain unfinished. The raw honesty in her voice cut deeper than any tabloid rumor, revealing the human cost behind the Hollywood glamour. Her final gift was a plea: "Don't remember me as just an icon. Remember the woman who loved and lost, who stood her ground, and who finally found peace in letting go." As the recorder clicked off, a decisive stillness filled the room. She had laid bare her heart, offering closure to an epic romance that the world had only pieced together in whispers. And in that moment, Diane Keaton truly spoke out, before death, before eternity, leaving behind the tender truths of a love that shaped her life and in turn changed his. Diane's recorded voice reopened memories long buried beneath Hollywood glamour and public assumption. Each syllable carried the weight of decades she'd lived in half-truth. In her gentle tone, she wandered between joy and sorrow without skipping a beat. Those words stand as her last testament, bridging past triumph with future understanding. She then described the first time Al had looked at her not as Kay Adams but as Diane, the woman behind the camera's glare. "I saw him studying my hands," she whispered. "He told me he could learn a lifetime of emotions from their tremor." That confession, she revealed, remained sealed until now. Our story pivots here, from two star-struck actors to two vulnerable people entwined in creative fire. Diane recalled late-night arguments over script changes, how Al insisted on raw authenticity while she championed emotional nuance. He'd become so consumed by the art that the world outside set boundaries blurred, she reflected. And she, ever the patient listener, tried to anchor him to reality. Then came the Cannes incident of 1976, their first public fallout. Al's notorious temper flared when paparazzi photographers swarmed Diane, snapping unflattering shots. She remembered the way Pacino grabbed her hand, his knuckles white, and marched her into a side alley, away from strobing bulbs. "He held me close," she said, voice cracking. "But I realized even that fierce protection couldn't shield me forever." Time marched on, ushering in awards shows and critical praise, but Diane's home felt emptier with each accolade. She painted canvases in her studio, vast landscapes, stained with acrylic in urgent strokes, whispering his name as if to summon his presence. "My art became my solace," she admitted. "It was the only place I could speak freely about us without the world listening." She revealed one clandestine letter Al had sent in 1983, disguised as business correspondence. Its final line read, "I'm lost without your laughter echoing through my silence." Diane placed that letter next to her cherished Polaroid, creating a fragile shrine. "To me it was proof that his heart had a home," she confessed. "Yet a home without walls can't keep out the winds of doubt." Their final scene together unfolded at a Godfather anniversary gala in 1992, a stage of flashbulbs and champagne toasts. Diane painted herself as composed sable fur coat, a single pearl necklace, yet inside her heart trembled. Al approached with that half-smile, yet his eyes betrayed distance. He said he admired my growth, my independence, Diane recalled, but he couldn't stay rooted in one place. Here Diane paused the recorder and allowed silence to speak for her grief. In that pregnant pause we sense her courage to face public scrutiny, to expose unredeemed longing. She then drew a breath and whispered, "I wanted him to see that letting go could be its own act of love." Those words now ring in our ears like an elegy. Pacino quote, "S own reflections crept into her final monologue." She quoted a private interview he'd given to a close friend. "Diane was my compass," he'd said. "Without her I wandered seas of doubt." What she left unsaid until this tape was that Pacino's wanderlust was never-ending. Even when she tried to anchor him with tenderness, he followed the call of new roles, new cities, new faces. Diane then shared the actual moment she chose herself over the promise of might-have-beens. "It was a Christmas Eve portrait," she said. Voice soft. Snow fell outside, and Al had flown to London for a premiere. Alone beside her tree, she wrote him a farewell letter, not angered, but resolved. She told him she'd always carry his love, but no longer bore its chains. Behind this revelation lies the beating heart of every human love story, departure and remembrance entwined. Diane explained how she eventually adopted her sons and built a new definition of family, one unscripted by Hollywood's spotlight. "My children taught me that love doesn't ask for permission or promise rings," she shared. "It thrives in actions, in quiet mornings, in honest words." A sudden shift in tone marked her last minutes on tape. She laughed softly, knowingly. "Do you know what my greatest regret is?" she asked the silent room. "Not that Al and I didn't wed, but that I wasted years fearing loss instead of celebrating love." That confession, raw and redemptive, binds every wound she revealed with a salve of acceptance. As the recorder clicked off for the final time, Diane spoke her closing lines without hesitation. "I give you my truth, for every woman who's loved deeply and lost, for every dreamer who's feared the truth of their own heart. Let my story be lantern light in your darkness. Let it guide you toward courage, toward peace, toward love that neither demands nor deserts." And with that her legacy crystallized not just in celluloid triumphs or awards, but in human vulnerability laid bare. Through this final testament, Diane Keaton transcends the Hollywood icon. She becomes a fellow traveler on the perilous journey of the heart. In the years following that final tape, Diane Keaton's world quietly shifted from the glare of spotlights to the subtle glow of personal discovery. She turned inward, exploring dimensions of her identity that lay beyond the characters she portrayed. The velvet-lined closets that once hid his tailored jackets gave way to shelves stacked with canvases splashed in bold hues, abstract landscapes that echoed her emotional journey. Each brushstroke captured a fragment of memory, the golden dusk of a Brooklyn evening, the trembling thrill of unspoken affection, the silver chill of solitude after goodbye. In her studio, Diane found a sanctuary, where silence spoke louder than applause, and the only audience that mattered was her own restless heart. Alongside painting, Keaton poured herself into writing, crafting essays that reflected on time's gentle hand and its capacity to both heal and hollow. In magazines and journals, she spoke candidly about aging with grace, about the freedom found in letting go of expectations and of attachments. "We're all temporary vessels," she wrote, "carrying stories that belong not just to us, but to the people who loved us into being." Her words resonated far beyond Hollywood circles, touching readers who saw in Diane's reflections a mirror for their own untold longings. For the first time, she was celebrated not only for her roles on screen but also as a voice that spoke softly yet firmly to universal truths. Meanwhile, Al Pacino's memoir, Sonny Boy, reached bestseller lists, revealing his own perspective on their years together. He described Diane as a steady lighthouse in a tempest of ambition, praising her loyalty amid his self-made storms. In interviews, he admitted that while he had chased roles across continents, it was her laughter he most dearly missed. These revelations ignited fresh waves of fascination. Fans pored over each page, eager to piece together the parts of their story that Diane had, until now, chosen to keep private. Social media buzzed with speculation, and retrospectives labeled them Hollywood's great what if. A new generation discovered their performances anew, analyzing every glance, every lingering gaze for hidden depths. Despite the renewed spotlight, Diane remained grounded. She accepted invitations to speak at universities, not to recount celebrity gossip but to mentor aspiring artists. In auditorium after auditorium, she stood before young faces bright with ambition and advised them to nurture their inner compass. "Don't lose yourself chasing applause," she told them. "Your most authentic work comes from a place of vulnerability, from willingness to risk heartbreak in service of truth." Her lectures intertwined anecdotes from The Godfather sets with broader meditations on integrity, leaving students spellbound by both her wit and her earnestness. Through these engagements, she redefined her legacy as not only an incomparable actress, but also as an advocate for creative courage. Their paths crossed one final time at a private tribute for Francis Ford Coppola's 50-year career. Held in a softly lit Venice theater, the event felt like a dream suspended between past and present. Diane wore a simple black dress. Pacino chose a dark suit without tie, eyes reflecting the flicker of old film reels. When she spoke on stage, her voice trembled only briefly before settling into a steady cadence. She recounted the first day of shooting The Godfather, the thrill of discovering Pacino's raw energy, and the bond they forged through art. When he joined her at the podium, he thanked her for inspiring his greatest performances. Their exchange contained neither regret nor reproach, only mutual respect and the silent acknowledgement of a shared chapter that forever shaped them both. That evening became a quiet coronation of their intertwined histories. As they embraced backstage, cameras clicked, but the moment felt personal, a testament to two souls who had loved deeply without promise. For Diane it was closure, for Elle, a reunion of tender memories. Afterwards, while strolling under Venetian lamps, she reflected on how far she had come, from the vulnerable young actress, hiding behind hats to the woman who had bared her truth without fear. The wind off the canal carried whispers of both loss and liberation, and Diane inhaled deeply, feeling a serene acceptance settle within her. In her final public appearance, a televised interview aired a week before her death. She sat beside her adopted sons, Dexter and Duke. They wrapped arms around her shoulders as she turned to the camera and said, "My life has been a mosaic of roles, some written for me, others I chose. But the truest part of my story is the one I lived off camera." Her sons smiled, their presence a living testament to the family she created on her own terms. She spoke briefly of Al Pacino, calling him an indelible part of my heart's narrative, then shifted to emphasize love's many forms, friendships that outlast decades, communities that nurture dreams, children who bring unexpected joy. That interview resonated worldwide as a portrait of a life fiercely lived and gently embraced. As dusk settled on her final days, Diane resumed her painting and writing, completing a collection of essays and artworks she titled Seasons of Light. The book, published posthumously, soared to the top of bestseller lists, its pages illuminated by her candid insights on love, loss, and creative rebirth. Critics lauded the work as her most fearless performance yet, no makeup, no costume, just raw humanity, in full view. Readers wrote in by the thousands, sharing how her words guided them through their own transitions. In every letter, Diane's legacy rippled outward, a testament to the enduring power of honesty. Before that last breath, Diane recorded a final unbroadcast message, a simple thank you to the people who had watched her grow both on screen and in spirit. She spoke of gratitude for every role, every friendship, and every heartbeat that carried her through joy and sorrow. Our stories are written across faces that love touches, across the lines life carves into our skin, she said. We are rich with history, and richer still when we share it. In that closing invocation, she left behind not just the secrets of a great love, but an invitation for all of us to live our truths fully, before the final curtain falls. In the weeks that followed Diane's posthumous revelations, the film world shifted on its axis. Critics revisited her earliest performances, hunting for hidden longing in every glance she cast toward Pacino's Michael Corleone. Film scholars convened panels to debate whether Keaton's off-camera heartbreak lent deeper gravitas to Kay Adams's silent resilience. Online fan communities erupted in threads titled "The Real Love Story of the Godfather," dissecting archival footage for nuances they'd once overlooked. Yet beneath every scholarly article and heated forum debate lay a simple truth: Diane had laid her heart bare, and audiences responded with an empathy that transcended tabloid fascination. This final chapter rewrote not only her personal narrative, but also reframed Al Pacino's legacy. No longer was he solely the brooding force of cinematic history. In Diane's last words, he emerged as a man capable of profound tenderness and equally profound regret. Fans who once lionized his bravado now whispered of his vulnerability, imagining him reading her farewell letter beneath Nova Scotian stars. In intimate memoir excerpts, he described the ache of losing her more poignantly than any tragic role he'd ever embodied. Their romance evolved from Hollywood lore into universal parable, proof that even legends live and love with the same fierce humanity as the rest of us. Amid this cultural renaissance, Diane's own artworks and essays found new life. Seasons of Light became required reading in university film programs, its pages paired with screenings of Annie Hall and The Godfather. Galleries reported record attendance, every visitor drawn by the chance to stand before her canvases and feel the echoes of those storied nights on set. In her paintings, the Rhone River glowed under a violet sky, mirroring the electric encounters on Brooklyn piers, where she and Al first spoke in hushed tones. Each brushstroke carried the memory of candlelit dinners and the weight of unspoken promises. Her mentoring legacy continued to blossom. Students who had once only known her through screen stills now felt a kinship born of shared vulnerability. They wrote essays about how Diane's courage to confess her heartbreak inspired their own willingness to risk emotional exposure in experimental films and avant-garde installations. Directors dedicated short films to her spirit, capturing fleeting moments, the flutter of a hand against a cheek, the silence between two lovers, as metaphors for every unvoiced longing. In film festivals across the globe, her name appeared on marquees not as a star of past acclaim, but as an emblem of authenticity. Television producers scrambled to secure rights to Diane's audio recordings, planning documentaries that would stitch together her voice, her art, and her storied romance with Pacino. One upcoming feature promised never-before-seen home movies of their Manhattan soirees, while another teased interviews with Coppola and Allen, reflecting on how that partnership shaped an era. Each project felt like another step toward fully understanding the woman whose life had been too vast to capture in interviews or magazine covers alone. Social media campaigns bore witness to her continuing impact. Hashtags like #DianeSpeaks and #LoveBeforeDeath trended as fans shared personal stories of love and loss, using her narrative as a catalyst for their own healing. Influential voices in mental health advocacy cited her courage in revealing private wounds, framing her confession as therapeutic not just for herself, but for anyone who'd ever loved without guarantees. Bloggers penned open letters thanking Diane for reminding the world that heartbreak, when shared, can become a bridge rather than a wall. Yet even amid the celebratory swirl, a gentle undertone of loss persisted. Al Pacino, now in his mid-80s, made sporadic public appearances, his expressions measured as he addressed their shared past. At one retrospective, he paused before a projected still of Kay and Michael dancing, his voice cracking as he called Diane my greatest lesson in love. Cameras captured the moisture in his eyes, and millions of viewers felt the resonance of two hearts forever entwined, even in separation. For viewers of this channel, Diane's final message holds a mirror to our own relationships. How often have we hesitated to speak our truth, fearing that honesty might fracture what we hold dear? Diane's confession reminds us that vulnerability can be a gift, one that fosters deeper understanding rather than inevitable betrayal. In her last testament, she urged us to cherish love in all its imperfect forms, to recognize that endings can become beginnings when we allow ourselves the courage to release what no longer serves our growth.